Final Fantasy XVI is a Final Fantasy. And I know what you heard. I know what you've seen. And I know how you feel. Because honestly, I felt the same way about a lot of games. And I felt this way about this game initially. In certain parts in the game, I just was like, this don't feel like Final Fantasy. Now, you don't have to worry. I'm not going to go and talk too much. So first and foremost, like I was just saying, I won't talk about any spoilers. I intentionally, sped through the game so I could avoid having spoilers on my end. And this coming from a guy who Eris was spoiled for him back in 97, like literally about a month after the woman first died. Somebody spoiled it for me, so I never ever do that to somebody. And then secondly, this is not gonna be an official review because let's call it PGC or post-game clarity. It's only been a day or some change since I beat the game, so I want to have a moment to kind of sink in and really kind of collect my thoughts on exactly what I want to say about the game. You know what I mean? Before I just jump in and I just really wanted to jump in and talk about it because I was excited about it and it hit me. I wanted to discuss how Final Fantasy is technically not Final Fantasy like it used to be, but it's still Final Fantasy. Does that make sense? The elephant in the room, we gotta get that out of the way. The elephant in the room is this Cid is the best Cid in the entire series. That's all Final Fantasies. Seriously. Like, mostly Cid's a bum. Mostly the Cids in the game, they don't do too much nada. They either old men or old bumbling men, or they're old men that are so old they can't really, go out and actually battle. There's really no competition for it either. I mean, I thought before this Sidolphus, this Cid, my favorite Cid was the one from Final Fantasy VII, which again was the reason because we got an actual chance to go out and play with this Cid. But Cidaringo, Cid the Outlaw, the number 2 husbando, whatever you want to call this dude, whatever Cid comes behind this dude is going to be hard times. It's going to be very similar to how when Heath Ledger passed and he was the Joker for the Batman movie, and it was just like a gap there, and then they end up getting Jared Leto to do it, and yeah, they just do this dude like he's just a sacrificial actor. He was just a martyr because they just wanted to get over the hump, and then they end up getting a better Joker, which was a different Joker within Joaquin Phoenix. So whoever does the next Cid, maybe Cid will come back in Final Fantasy 17. That's probably gonna be a bump one, or they'll probably do some kind of new Cid and another Final Fantasy spin-off or some crap, and then when the next Cid from 18 or something come back, maybe that one will be better. And speaking of Jared Leto, is this as a side note, he wasn't good in Morbius either. My dude probably should just not, mess with these comic book movies no more. Funny thing is, Spawn is having a new movie come out. If they make Jared Leto cast him as Spawn, I'm done. I can't watch no more. I can't. If they do that, if anything like that, I can't do it no more. I can't do it no more. I also have to address something else that bothered me in the entire game, from start to finish. And for me, this is the main thing that made it not feel like a Final Fantasy for me. And that's the lack of being able to control the members of your party. Now, that's not a spoiler. We sensed that on the demo, and when you first start playing the game, you see that. And I think that is a travesty. And I'm sorry if I yelled in y'all ear. That's a travesty. How you ain't gonna let me play with Jill? So you did that to me with Luna Freya and Cindy. I couldn't play with them at all. Now you gonna let the girl come in my party. We out here rocking the boat like Aaliyah. We out here dancing. We out here giving each other the eye. but you're not in my. I can't check it. Okay. I searched. I scouted. I prayed. And to no avail. None. As much as I like Jill, as cool as the OG Sid is, I can't control him. No equipping, no status checking, no leveling up. And even though they follow you from place to place in the game, they don't talk, they don't say shit, they don't really communicate or have like a dialogue with each other. How does Star Ocean, the stepchild of the company, have more and better dialogue between characters than the main game franchise? How? And before I go too far down the rabbit hole, I've said the rabbit hole 4 times. It just feels like I just had a moment. I'm sorry, y'all. It just feels like the game is good, but it just felt like Final Fantasy X and many other Final Fantasies, even like 7 and 8, which did not primarily deal with some of the things you would consider traditional Final Fantasies, felt more Final Fantasy, in my opinion, than Final Fantasy 16. And both 16 and 10 both deal with the summonings, which is crazy. And again, I'm not going to count 14, mainly because it feels weird. 11 and 14 are considered part of the mainline series when they're both online games. And I get it, the numbers don't lie. It sold the most, I'm talking about 14, out of all the games, which, it should be noted that because it dropped in 2013. So you got 10 years of a game that's continuously going on. It's no wonder that, it's got the numbers that it's gotten. But all the things that make up a franchise are there. The Moogles, the Chocobos, the Crystals, a budding romance, magic, but something's still missing. Something was still missing. And while the game is definitely a Final Fantasy, it just feels like, just a couple things, just for it to get that perfection, just that, it's a few things are just off. Maybe it's the lack of diversity in the game. Yeah, Final Fantasy is not known for having a lot of black characters in any of the games. Most of them look very Eurocentric for that matter, but at least every now and again, at bare minimum, there's a bear here, or a Shaz there, or a Kira over there. And it was just baffling that certain areas, which seem like they would support and have more cultural or ethnicity and multicultural, situations, you didn't have any. I thought I did see one sister, and I jumped up and down, almost dropped my controller, and then I realized she just had a deep tan. It could also be the lack of female character influence. A lot of the female characters that are in game are well, but it just feels like, when you eat and you eat, but you still hungry after, like something missing, like, oh yeah, I had that, but that didn't stop the hunger. I need more. That's what it felt with a lot of the female characters within the story. And that also goes for my baby, Jill. While I love Jill, she's a beauty and I enjoy and admire her resolve. It just feels like the writers didn't fully let her be free. Free as, let's say, Renoa or Aerith, Tifa, Yuna, Celeste, or even Garnet. Now, of course, again, Final Fantasy seriously hasn't seemed like Final Fantasy since the old days, but this could be, like I already mentioned, due to the fact that we can't control any of the other characters that's in the party. That could be one of the main factors why I'm kind of like, each character, whether good, bad, or Queena, had their own magic, their own skills, and their own play styles in every other Final Fantasy. And by taking that away, to me, in essence, kind of feels like a super Western game. It feels like I'm playing Skyrim, but my characters don't die. They don't die, by the way. Your party members, they don't die. They'll use items. They help and heal. The enemies in the AI don't even attack them most of the time. Every now and again, they'll attack them if they're in a way of a, like an AoE. But for the most part, they're there. Now, many of y'all remember and know I complain about this for forever and a day when it comes to Elden Ring, when it comes to Dark Souls, when it comes to Skyrim, when it comes to a lot of Fallouts, when it comes to a lot of games like this, even if they're made in Japan, that Western influence is a lonely one. And even though I'm not alone, like, you're teasing me, Square Enix. Can I play with the rest of the party members? You ain't gonna tell me that the homie Sid, his movesets and limits wouldn't be raw? You ain't gonna tell me that Jill, being Jill, wouldn't be click with the rapier? Alright. I can't. Other than that, I honestly really enjoyed the game, but 30 hours in, I was still looking around, irritable and upset. A little bit, I can't lie, that I couldn't change, my party members. But when you take the element out, I mean, you're just with Clive. When you strip it down, you're just Clive. And I've seen a lot of people complain and talk about that, and that's why they don't consider it a Final Fantasy. They consider it more of a DMCA. And who was that? Or not a DMCA, God, they coming for me. For a Devil May Cry 5. And somebody, was it God of War? Or I think God of War said it, the creators of God of War said God of War is more of an RPG than Final Fantasy 16. Now, I wouldn't completely agree with that, but you can control some of the characters on God of War, even if you couldn't control them. At least the ability to be able to set them parameters and stuff up, or let the AI control them, would have been nice. I can't even look at my baby status. So essentially, I was just there 90% of the game by myself, which was still good, but it had its moments where it wasn't. I wanted more. Truthfully, Final Fantasy, the story, and the characters haven't been, Final Fantasy since Hanabaru Sakagachi stepped down after Final Fantasy X in 03. The new helm of Square Enix decided to go with a whole new type of, formula, which was more sequels and more cost-efficient routes, i.e., while we have Final Fantasy X2, even though Sakagachi was still on that a little bit, but while we had 3 of 13, 1, 2, and 3, how we got 11, how we end up getting all these extras and type zeros and other spin-offs, and kind of saturated the market for when it came to Final Fantasies. And it's no wonder that it's a question now whether Final Fantasy is still the king of RPGs, which, no, it's not. The Personas of the world, the Skyrims of the world, the Elden Rings of the world, the Shinigami Tenseis, it's the Disgaeas. Since 2003, when Final Fantasy was the king of its domain, a lot of shit has changed. And a lot of stuff that they used to be able to do, they can't do anymore. Not only that, because a lot of stuff that they used to do, they don't do anymore at all. I get it. They wanted to be more cost efficient, go down that route, especially after the movie studio went bankrupt. They just wanted to focus more on what they already had and that they can use the assets for and then sell over and over again. And it worked. Look at Kingdom Hearts. But the source, the root, and the backbone of all Final Fantasies generally starred a female character, whether that was Terra or Renoa, Eric, Tifa. Y'all know the drill. I just went down the list of all the women before. We the story was based around the ladies. They were the most pivotal part in the game, and we took up the point of view of a male protagonist. They tried to do that with Final Fantasy XII. However, it didn't really work, mainly because of the fact that Ash should have been the star, and Vaughn was trashy. Vaughn is probably one of the worst protagonists ever, Treasure Planet or not, just in RPGs in general. I'm sorry if he's your favorite. That's just my opinion, but Titus gets a lot of rap. And when Titus and Hope are running and talking shit about Vaughn, then, you know, it's probably, okay, well, yeah, Vaughn and Hope, they neck and neck. They neck and neck. They really neck and neck. But not since 12 have they continued that formula, and tried to continue that formula. With Lightning and 13, they went a whole new, different kind of way. And I still need to go back and beat 13. I get to the end multiple times, and I just don't care. One day, I'll go back. And again, look, you don't have to tell me. I mean, I know. I get it. The only constant in life is change. So I was expecting, and I wasn't upset when they changed a lot of things when it came to Final Fantasy. And I, for one, don't mind the battle system. I think I've already said it. I actually like the battle system. I felt that it was something they had to do to keep pace with the Elden Rings and the Skyrims and the Dragon's Dogma and the action fast-paced, we don't have attention span, we need more modern day gamers to like our stuff formula. I understood that. So I get that part of it, you know, going and bleeding into the Western market. But what I am upset about is, again, I only get a chance to play as Clive. And that, if anything else, really feels like I'm stuck in a Western market game that's just kind of painted like a Final Fantasy. And the ability, I just can't keep saying it, but it hurts. The ability to rotate members is a fundamental element in games. More than the Chocobos, more than the Moogles, being able to control, assimilate, delegate, and all the other water gates, everything else kind of gate to your party is really what makes an FF. There's also a sense of realism in the game. Talking about 16, not the graphics. Yeah, the graphics are great, gorgeous. Some of the best graphics I've seen to date, and I'm not even rocking 4K. But if you've watched Game of Thrones, if you've seen anything about Game of Thrones, then you'll know Final Fantasy 16 is a real huge bite off of Game of Thrones and Attack on Titan. Mostly off of Game of Thrones. Now, I know what you're gonna say. Quentin, you crazy. Bro, geek, guy. And I'm gonna say to you, you know nothing, Clive Snow. You know nothing, Clive Slow. Literally, it feels like J.J.R. Martin and his boys, they wrote Clive. He's just a better jawline than, you know, Kit Harington from that played Jon Snow. And again, I'm not gonna go too far into certain similarities or even the similarities between antagonists and contagonists or other protagonists, because that's borderline spoiler, and I want y'all to experience the game as much and as good and as you can, because it is a good game. And I know it is medieval, and a lot of other Final Fantasies are medieval, but even some of the ones that were medieval and the ones that weren't medieval still had that more of a fantasy feeling when it came to their world building. Like, for example, Midgar felt like a fantasy place, even if it was near modern day. And that also goes for 8, and that also goes for 9, with the whole troop of thieves that traveled the world. It just felt like fantasy based, like more fantastical. Final Fantasy VI was also medievalish, but it had a steampunk like vibe, and it still retained that whole fantasy feel. I even argue that Final Fantasy X felt like more of a fantasy atmosphere than 16 even did, and they both focused on summons. One felt like a complete fictional world filled with fantasy, talking about 10, and the other medieval with Final Fantasy assets inserted, i.e. crystals, chocobos, moogles. But 16 is good. I keep saying it. A step in the right direction. I finished with about 60 hours, 68, 69 hours, almost 70 hours. And the only things I need to do are the end game or new game plus things. I will go and attempt to try to get the platinum trophy on it, because I've only gotten one platinum. I think I've gotten two, from Final Fantasy VII-R and from Tales of Arise. So it feels good when you do something that's ultra rare and not everybody else can do or did do. So that part I'll probably stream, but I'm done with the game. I'm done with the game. There's some other details or critiques that I definitely like to go to, but again, I'm gonna say that for a review. And Final Fantasy XVI is, especially for newcomers, a great game and a new pace and a okay direction for the series. I could give this game is one of the best Final Fantasies, if not for just, in my opinion, a few of those little bitty quirks. And sometimes those little bitty quirks can make a big impact on the game, like not being able to play as Luna Freya, like having Jill in my party and Sid and other characters, but not truly being able to use them. Could you just imagine? Could you imagine only playing as Cloud, but not being able to play as Cloud and Tifa and Aerith and Barrett and Sid and Vincent and Cat Sith and Yuffie? Look at those cast of characters. That's why Square Enix keeps going and harping on Final Fantasy VII, because that was their franchise. That was their money. That's their flagship game. Flagship game. That's the reason they keep beating it down. I'm still, even after enjoying, loving, and playing Final Fantasy XVI, more excited with the liberties and with the battle system and being able to control Tifa. Do you love me? Do you want me? What? Then I am with Final Fantasy XVI, because even though it has a whole fresh new cast, I ain't get a genre. At least I know what I'm getting into with 7, and I can control the characters. I can control my own characters. I can control my own characters. But the game is good. I enjoyed it, minus some of the little critiques that I have. I suggest it. It is a system seller. And I ran out of stuff to say. I exhausted myself. So, on that one, interweb, I'm going to let y'all go. Again, if you did like this video, do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you're new to my channel and you want to stay up to date with all things games, especially them RPGs, and all things geek, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I make videos here on the channel all the time. And now, the Geek Talk on Sundays. Archives coming soon on Saturdays. And as always in the web, remember to eat, sleep, geek, repeat. I'll holler at y'all next time. Peace.